Have you ever felt?
Are you listening?
Hey YouTube, it's the Pied Piper. Instagram is pissing me off. Hey YouTube, it's Piper, and I'm coming to you with another review and recap of the original Roswell and Roswell, New Mexico. And I know you're probably thinking that you can't even focus on what I'm saying because I look super busted. I got no makeup on. I'm probably greasier than Jermaine Jackson giving an interview on TV, but there's a reason for that. It's because my face has decided to play a cruel trick on me today where it's like resistant to makeup. It's like, no, put makeup on me and I will rebel and give pimples. So I'm giving it time to breathe and not put any makeup on and just letting it do what it do. And I'm sure you're noticing also that my roots are showing again because for whatever reason my hair has been growing fast. Maybe it's the rice water I used. I don't know. I don't know if I'll attribute it to that because my hair does grow pretty quickly. And it's so super annoying because I have to keep redoing my roots. Anyway, those were tangents. And the reason why those are tangents, and you're probably wondering, dang, a tangent when you usually give these monumental, huge reviews and recaps? There's a tangent in this one because of several reasons that I will get into when we discuss it. So, the 5th episode of the original Roswell was called Missing. And if you were an OG Roswell fan, you know exactly what it's about. So I'm going to run through this pretty quickly because, again, this is one of those episodes where just not that much stuff happens in it. So this is probably not even going to be like 10 minutes on this one episode. And Missing, of course, opens with some narration from Liz Parker. And what happens in this is she goes home and looks for her journal, the one that she's writing in at the beginning of every season 1 episode, pretty much, on her rooftop. Well, that journal or diary, whatever she was calling it, is missing. Thus the name, roll credits, right? So it's missing, and instead of holding it to herself or, you know, not really addressing it, she does immediately inform Max, like, hey, my journal is missing, and BT dubs, I write everything about you in it. And he's like, everything? And she's like, yep, everything. You know, she wants to be a scientist, so obviously journaling and all of her stuff for her is just second nature. And even though I'm a big journaler too, and I don't want to do anything in science, but that's how she rolls, and she does document pretty much everything. And at the end of this whole series, you see why her documentation of everything is really important. But he's not telling Isabel and Michael about that at all. And plus, as you will remember a few episodes ago, Michael got that vision when he held Jim Valenti's key from his thermos that they stole when Isabel was acting as decoy to get them to not go to the office of Jim Valenti while Max and Michael broke in to try to see the photo that Sheriff Valenti had shown Liz or something. I don't know what they thought they were going to find, but since the FBI took everything, they only got that key. But Michael had a flash when he had that key and nobody else did. So he's been obsessed with the vision he got, which was this domed shaped building. He's been so obsessed that he's even been showing up to his class that he usually skips, which is art class. And even the art teacher is like, you're here? And he's like, yeah, I just kind of felt like drawing. And Michael even wins an award for his drawing. But I think it's weird because in this episode, Isabel says to Michael, like, you can't do that. People are going to start asking questions. And I'm thinking, he is drawing literally something that looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Epcot Center or something. Like, it looks like a golf ball. Like, nobody's going to go, yep, that drawing is an alien drawing. it's weird what they think people will assume. And I only have to believe, or am led to believe, that somehow, because of it being Roswell and because it's a TV show, obviously, and not reality, they operate on the idea that any small thing will be looked at as alien related, even though Michael and Isabel are not under suspicion thus far of being aliens. So I'm like, so what? He drew a picture. But Isabel takes definitely some issue with that. And it's funny because she's like trying to get Max to side with her on Michael not doing this because it's a bad idea. And Max looks at the drawing and he's like, hey, that's getting pretty good. And Michael's like, yeah, you know, I've been really working on it. This is like, you know, chalk. I'm telling you all of this stuff sort of out of order because, like I said, this episode is very filler and is more character development driven than actually driven by a lot of plot points. So Liz and Max are the only two that know that her journal is missing. And Liz tells him, you know, give me a day or whatever to find who took it or find it. I must have misplaced it. It can't be lost. That's ridiculous. And so he goes, okay, you know, I won't tell anybody. You do what you got to do. I trust you. And of course he trusts her. They literally have seen into each other's soul. They know every nook and cranny of the other person's mind. So she's looking for it. She questions her mom. She questions Alex even. And Alex is like, you and Maria have been blowing me off lately, and now you all of a sudden think, what? What do you think I took in your room? So everybody is real offended by the way she comes off. And then there's Kyle, who last episode she broke up with, and she accuses him. And Max and her are looking for the journal, and when Max goes into her room with her, he kind of looks like, oh no, I'm in her room. And there's a bed, but he also looks at her music that she's got sitting out, and he touches the CD and he gets a flash of Kyle in Liz's room. And so Max is like, Kyle took it. And Liz is like, that's not possible. He hasn't been in here in forever because I broke up with him. She doesn't say that, but... And then he's like, no, when things are intense, sometimes we all get these flashes, or some of us get flashes when things are intense or highly energy moments. And so he's like, I saw it and Kyle was in here. And so Liz goes and finds Kyle, and he's at the basketball court playing basketball. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, Kyle, they really played up stereotypical jock things with Kyle's character, because Kyle not only is playing basketball, he's also part of the football team, I believe. Like, he literally is part of every team. He is the ultimate jock, which if you have seen like seasons 2 and everything, it's kind of weird that that was his original personality, but it does help with a nice character arc that, you know, he does change quite a bit from season 1 to the final season, season 3. So she is evasive about confronting Kyle, and she's like, you know, what you took is not right. And he's like, oh, what you took from me is not right. She's like, and they're obviously talking about two very different things, because he's thinking like, you stole my emotions and all my love. She's thinking, you stole my journal. It has my boo things, information in there. I want it back. So they're not on the same page, but he kind of threatens Liz and is like, you know, you don't want me to know your secret. I'm going to find out your secret. So they're both talking about two very different things. He's looking at it more like, you cheated on me with Max Evans and I'm upset. She's looking at it like, dude, you took my journal. How could you? You violated my privacy. So her and Max end up breaking into Kyle's house to see if it's there. And like I said, this episode is very anticlimactic as far as plot points is concerned. So we do see, I believe, FBI that come in or something while Liz and Max are there, and they notice some stuff going on. So then we discover that Michael took Liz's journal. And Michael ends up going into the crash down one night, and he tells Liz, you know, first of all, he walks behind the counter and stuff like he owns the place. Roswell, New Mexico visited that same thing from the original, because they had, remember, the Roswell, New Mexico, one of the episodes, like right after Liz finds out about everything, Isabel and Michael sort of go and harass her at the crash down after hours. And then in this one, Michael kind of does the same thing. He's a douche. He goes behind the counter and he's like looking and stuff. And she's like, you know, you're not supposed to be back here. This is not for customers. And he's like, whatever. I am an alien. I can do what I want. Again, he doesn't say that. We all know he doesn't say that. So he goes back there and he's like, you know, hey, so one day you were sitting here at the counter and you were writing in something. And when I asked you what you were writing, you said that it was homework. But it wasn't homework, was it? And she's like, no, it wasn't, Michael. And it kind of feels like he's the parent chastising a child. But she's like, no, it wasn't. And he's like, yeah. And he pulls it out and he hands it to her. And I felt like this was a very unauthentic reaction she gave, because she seemed just very fine with him stealing her journal and probably reading it cover to cover. I'm like, wow. And then ends up telling her, like, I would appreciate it if you don't tell anybody about this, that I'm the one who took it. I just needed to be able to trust you. And these are not verbatim quotes or anything, but this is the gist. This is what you're supposed to take away from this scene, is he's like, you know, I didn't trust you and I wasn't sure if we could, and because this is my life too, I had to know I could trust you. And he's like, you know, I read your journal and you just gave me a whole nother reason to be jealous of Max Evans. And it's really sweet, and that's their one real bonding moment, but it does a lot for them because it cements a friendship between the two of them. And he realizes that, yes, he can trust Liz because she was not ever going to tell anybody, and because she cares so much for Max, she would never put Max's life in that kind of jeopardy. And she's like, you know, oh, you read everything, you know, you could have just destroyed this because everyone will know about you if they find it, or somebody will know about you if they find it. And he's like, no, everybody will know about you. And that's a very insightful thing for like a 16 or 17-year-old to say. And they don't really ever say how old he is, but I'm assuming he's like 16, 17. And it's very insightful because what he's meaning is they're going to see how you exactly feel about Max. And this is stuff that even Max probably doesn't know. I'm going to throttle Instagram. My Instagram doesn't blow up often, but when it does blow up, it chooses Roswell recaps and reviews to blow up during. That should be a sign. And then we have a scene at the very end. They're sitting at a lunch table, and I glossed over the part where Max ends up telling Michael and Isabel about Liz losing her journal. When Michael finds out that Liz told Max, that's even another reason why he feels such a friendship and kind of kindred spirit with her, because she could have kept that to herself and pretended like it never happened, but instead she told him. And when Michael finds out that Max knows, I think that prompts him to go ahead and give it back, because he realizes that there's just no reason to keep it. Liz is trustworthy. Max is reading some book by somebody with the last name Atherton, and they pretty much only refer to him as Atherton, so I'm not going to find his name or look for it. So they have this book, and on the book jacket is a picture of Atherton's home or business. I don't know. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was his home, because when they do go there eventually, it is kind of weird. But they find a picture, and now he knows. I think it was William Atherton. I don't know. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to look. So yeah, they see the picture, and Isabel's like, oh my goodness, Michael, look, it's your picture. And he looks, and so now they know where that dome is, and they know that that's a starting point to go and find stuff, because Atherton's book is about aliens, and I believe it's about an alien who he knew as well. So it's something that will definitely get them in touch with people, or whoever was at one point in time on the ship with them that crashed in 1947. That's the end of the OG Roswell. Now we are going to fast forward into Roswell, New Mexico, episode 5, called Don't Speak. And if you didn't know, Roswell, New Mexico comes on every Tuesday on the CW, 9/8 Central. Episode 5 has a lot of different things that happen in it, and I don't want to be too judgmental, and I'm probably going to put some of you off, especially if you're really enjoying this reboot, but I'm going to be 100% honest with you. And I don't have anything to gain because, you know, nobody sponsored this. I do what I want. Episode 5 opens with Isabel laying on the ground underneath some windmill or something, and she's literally out in the middle of nowhere. Like, there's probably like tumbleweeds and little tufts of grass everywhere. She's just in the desert, and she wakes up there, and she's obviously confused because she doesn't remember being out there, and she's in her nightgown, which is a little bit weird. She obviously didn't travel there because she wanted to. And usually I go point by point with this show, and I start at the beginning, or like the opening scene, and work my way down. That's not going to happen in this one for several reasons. This episode just did not do it for me. I'm sure I am in the minority. There are probably some people who are just so excited that Roswell is back on TV that they don't really care what the quality of the content is. But I, being a writer, and because I write in this genre, well, I don't write in sci-fi, but I do write in fantasy and urban fantasy and psychological and paranormal thrillers, just in case you didn't know. That's my shameless self-promotion. So I do dabble in this sort of world building and things. And I just don't think that the CW, when they rebooted this with Julie Plec, knew what they were doing. And like I said, they're in one of my other videos if you haven't watched it, and I will put a card here for that video so that you can go and watch that video, because I say something that is very telling. And it's the CW has not done really any good reboots outside of Melrose Place. And that was an amazing reboot, and I was so upset when it got canceled. I'm like, why do all my good shows get canceled and then the shitty ones are on forever? I think even the reboot of Charmed got a second season, and I'm like, oh, bro, really? So this one is just suffering from some character development. And even though I know that Julie Plec and everybody is going to be like, well, this is a different telling, this is a reimagining of Roswell, and there's just going to be some differences. And I agree with that. And I'm actually here for the differences. And that's not the thing that bugs me about the show. I am glad that there was going to be differences. Like I told you before, I love the diversity. I love the fact that they're working even social issues in. If they were pulling it off more successfully, then I would really enjoy them including these social issues. But everything just seems like it was plotted on a piece of paper, and they just checked a list of things that they needed to include, even if they didn't gel with the actual storyline. Now that I went off on that tangent, let me bring you on back to Isabel laying in the desert underneath the windmill. She gets up, she's like, how'd I get here? And she staggers off, and we don't know where she goes, because we fast forward and we see Noah, who is Isabel's husband, goes over to what I believe is Michael's trailer, the new place his trailer is, because I don't think it's in the place he was evicted from. Michael is checking out Max's vehicle, and he's like, you know, and Max is floating the idea that maybe they should get out of town. And Michael's like, you're not getting anywhere. You need something in your car fixed. And I'm saying that because I am very, very stereotypically feminine and have no idea what cars need to be fixed. I run cars into the ground. I literally only know a couple of things about cars. I know that you can put water somewhere underneath the hood. I know that there is a little dipstick thingy that you pull out, you wipe off, and you go back in and see how much oil you have. And I know you put gas in there. And past that, I have no idea how cars work. It is a mystery to me, so I cannot tell you what he said or even remember it, and I wouldn't have written it down because it literally just jumps out of my mind as soon as I hear the knowledge. So Liz walks into, I'm believing, I don't know if it's Kyle's office in the hospital. Remember, Kyle has no specialty, at least not that we've seen. He just does everything in the hospital, from pediatric cardiology to ER doctor and PCP for some people. He just literally doesn't do any one thing. And so Liz walks in, and she's in a cute blouse and skirt, an A-line skirt. And Kyle stares at her, and he's thinking, lunch. Did you see Look Who's Talking? Mikey says that when he sees boobs. It's not an overtly sexy outfit, so I'm really, and she doesn't even really look all that great or different. It's not like she wasn't ugly, but she just didn't look different. So I thought to myself, why in the world is Kyle so impressed? Has he never seen her in a blouse and A-line skirt before? Because it went down to her knees. It wasn't like it was a sexy, sexy skirt, and she didn't have like that naughty librarian look going on. So I don't know. But he's impressed by whatever it is she looks like. So Kyle ends up showing Liz a box that his mom gave him of things that she had hidden from him, I guess, trying to preserve his father's memory, and didn't want to sully it by giving him these things that would paint his father in a bad light. But if you remember from the last episode, Kyle told Liz, after he did a little bow and she gave him a C- after, you know, being a D- in high school for his mad banging skills. So he tells her, because he got banged and he's like postcoital glow, he's like, I will look into if my dad was possibly boffing Rosa. So he wants to look into Rosa and his dad's relationship. And so when he gets this box of all these doodads that his mom kept of his dad's that would paint his dad in a bad light, he goes through it. And he tells Liz, like, hey, I'm finding all sorts of things. He cheated before, he's done this, that, this, and that, and this, and that. And like I said, those things are not important. So it's this, that, this, that, this, and that, because none of it really gives us anything at that moment. And so he then asks Liz, because he's, you know, after having the memory of his dad tarnished, irreparably at this point. He doesn't want to play detective with her. He wants to just kind of put it out of his mind for at least 24 hours. And so he tells her, like, hey, can we pump the brakes on this detective work just for today? And she's like, hey, no problem, dude. I see what you're going through. He's like, great. And then he leaves her in his office. And again, I have to repeat, aren't there some HIPAA violations for her being left in his office where there are, I'm assuming, patient records, patient files of different kinds? I mean, that's protected medical information. And he's just leaving it out for anybody to find and leaves her in there alone. And before he leaves the office, he does scoot the box underneath a desk or something. But as soon as he leaves, of course, nosy Liz, he reaches down, gets it, opens it up, and lo and behold, like right on the top, literally, she doesn't even search or anything. She just looks right in and goes, oh, a tape recorder with the date of Rosa's death on it. How convenient. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, how convenient. How very convenient. Come on, guys. Nobody could have directed her to maybe pretend to look in there for a little bit before she just pulls out a tape recorder immediately with just so happens to be a sticky note on it that says the date of Rosa's death. So Liz takes that, of course, because she's all about breaking trust with people. She does it with Max, so why not do it with Kyle? Then we see Max and Michael have a conversation. They're wondering or worried about where Isabel is because Noah, and I don't even remember if I finished this statement. I just went into a tangent on something else. But Noah comes to Michael's van area or where he keeps his trailer, and he asks, and Max is there because Max's car is being worked on by Michael. Noah's like, and remember Noah is Isabel's husband, and Noah's like, hey dudes, have you seen Isabel? I know that when she stays out at night, she's usually here with you guys. And that phrase made me wonder, like, I really did get suspicious at that because I'm like, bro, you married a woman who doesn't stay home some nights. Like, you're so used to her skipping off that you actually go to find her and know that she's just usually with her brother, which, yeah, she should be safe enough with her brother. But with Michael, too, you're just cool with that? That's what she does? She just spends the night at Michael's all the time. Like, it's just weird to me. But whatever, I guess he's cool with that sort of marriage thing. I know that whoever I marry, they definitely would not be the personality that's cool with me sleeping over at anybody else's house at any point in time when I'm a grown-ass woman and I should be in bed with him. So Max and Michael are obviously worried because they don't know where Isabel is either. They know that she allegedly that night before had gone home. And if she's not home, then where is she? So they both, get their antennas up, no pun intended, and they go and look for her. Michael, though, and Max say something that's very suspicious. Apparently, this whole mystery surrounding Rosa's death is something that the three of them know, and we learned in the last episode that Michael says, hey, I killed Rosa and Wyatt Long's sister, and I believe whoever the other person was too, because I believe they said in the first episode, the pilot, that Rosa ended up killing 2 other people when she was driving high. Now we know Michael killed Rosa and apparently the other people she was alleged to have killed. But Michael and Max say something to each other that now leads me to believe that not only do the 3 of them have this secret that Michael killed Rosa, we also know that Michael and Max have a secret that is outside of even Isabel, and she doesn't know something surrounding that night. So we hear that and our little antennae go up like, really? So keep that in your mind because it comes back up. One thing I think is kind of interesting. Noah is looking around for Isabel and he's searching the whole town. Now, I have been to Roswell, New Mexico. It is not that small of a town. They are treating it like it's a one-horse town, and it is not a one-horse town. So it's weird to me that while he's looking, he's walking around and he's looking at buildings and stuff, not even inside of anywhere, and he just like looks up a building. And I'm like, what did you think? She scaled that building like Spider-Man? Why are you looking up there? Liz ends up coming up and like approaching him, or at least going into the same building I believe that he was going into or staring at. And he's like, hey, Liz. And we're led to believe that he knows Liz. And I'm thinking, this show is so weird because you don't ever really know who knows each other and who doesn't. So now Liz has been gone for 10 years. So we know Isabel got married sometime within that 10 years. Liz has been gone for 10 years. So either Noah is from Roswell and so they went to school together, or Like, he just is really good at picking out random people. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he's heard of the crash down, but again, Liz hasn't been there for 10 years. But she's like, nope, haven't seen Isabel. He's like, okay, well, if you see her, can you tell her I'm looking for her? What husband does this? He is too laid back. This is why sometimes nice guys do finish last. I think you're so nice that you're like, yeah, my wife spends the night out all the time. I'm just constantly looking for her. Like that makes you look stupid. No, you're hot, but stupid, if that's what you do. Then Michael and Max are standing around because they go to the windmill where Isabel had been laying, and she's not there anymore in the middle of the desert. And it's discovered that apparently her car was found somewhere, and so that led them to where they are. It's not like they just picked that spot to go to out of nowhere. Max, being a sheriff deputy, knows that Isabel's car was picked up from that area. So they go over to that area, and Isabel is obviously not there anymore. And so Michael tells Max, can you connect with her or something stupid like that? Is my opinion showing? Sorry. So then Max reaches out telepathically, and I'm just like, oh, come on. Now, to be fair, I think something similar to this was possible in the Roswell High book series, and the first Roswell did not touch it, but this Roswell picked up the things that Roswell didn't touch. Unfortunately, I think it was not touched for a reason that should probably kept it untouched, but it's not. And he reaches out telepathically, and he's like, oh, we gotta find her, like she's fading in and out or something like that. It's not important what he says because it just leads them to Isabel, which they go and find her. And then we have Kyle going over to this house, and I think it's from a key. He found some sort of a key inside the box that his mom gave him of his dad's, I guess, torrid affair stuff, which I'm like, why would a mom keep all of that incriminating evidence against her husband? Just keep it around even after he dies. And he goes over to that house. Well, when he goes over to that house, it's discovered that Alex actually lives in that house. And it's the house that Jim Valenti left to Alex. And I'm thinking, your dad, Jim Valenti, left Alex a whole house. Why did he leave you, Dr. Kyle? He left it to Alex because apparently Alex Maines needs it, and Alex has the utmost respect for Jim Valenti. And so we do learn that Jim Valenti wasn't the scoundrel that we've had him painted as thus far. It seems more like he was a good dude. And when Alex and Kyle are talking, which again, I didn't even realize they knew each other, but I guess it makes sense since they all went to the same high school. But with them not making Maria and Liz best friends in this series, it's hard to understand why Kyle or why Alex exists, or even what his connection is outside of Michael. So he's there and they talk, and you do learn that Jim Valenti is not that big of a scoundrel, and Kyle, implores Alex to, let him look around the house for a little bit and just find some things, or, just see what it's all about. So Alex is like, sure. Kyle goes looking around. He finds this hidden room, and there's like a bed and everything in there. And so they deduce that this was either where his dad kept somebody or this is where his dad did his dirt. They don't know for sure, but they're looking around. You know how I said in a previous review and recap that it was good because he is not so much upset that Alex is gay, but more so he's upset with Alex's choice in men. That's what we got from the drive-in episode, which I believe was episode 2. But it turns out that from Alex's explanation to Kyle, it actually is true that no, Sergeant Jesse Maines was also quite homophobic at that time. I don't know if he still is, but I know at that time, when Alex was young and his dad first found out about him being gay, he was homophobic. And that is a very real issue, and it's horrible when it happens. My problem with it is not that they are attacking a real issue, it's their execution of tackling this real issue. They just don't sell it well at all. And it's too cliche, and it's not enough for us to feel connected to Alex, unfortunately, because we just don't know enough about these characters. There's just been such little attention paid to character development that it doesn't impact you the way that it should when you hear that this was a character's experience. This is why I say they are leaning very heavily on the fact that Roswell did have a very dedicated follower base originally. So they're hoping that all that character development transfers over here and gives people love for all of these characters still. But for me, when I'm looking at a reboot, I'm trying to look at it with fresh eyes, and I need the characters to be well developed, and it is not in this one. Remember how I mentioned in the pilot that there was a weird, kooky guy sitting in the crash down when Liz gets there, and he's like doing a radio show? Well, we discovered that it's not a radio show, it's a podcast that he does, and it's basically one of those conspiracy theory podcasts, and he conducts it from, I don't know, the crash down or just very near the crash down regularly. And we see Kooky Pants, and I call him Kooky Pants. His name is not Kooky Pants, but his name is Grant. I think Grant Green. If you remember in the OG Roswell, there was a Grant Sorensen, so I'm like, oh, they're kind of using the names, and the OG one kind of used names. I don't know if Grant Green was part of the Roswell High novel series. From what I saw, I don't think he was, but he might be a stand-in for another character who was the boss of the UFO museum in the novel series. So we kind of formally meet Grant Green, aka Mr. Kooky Pants McConspiracy Theory. Now, there's another reason for me not to like Liz in this episode. That reason being, she is very cool with B&Eing Mr. Kooky Pants' house. Like, she just breaks in there. And I'm like, what? Now, you're wondering, because I didn't mention it, why would she break into Kooky Pants McConspiracy Theory's house? And she breaks into there because the recorder that she stole from Kyle's box of stuff his dad kept had tapes of 911 calls from the night that Rosa died. And on that tape, you hear a man call in 3 floating teenagers. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But for whatever reason, she discovers that it was Mr. Kooky Pants, and so she knows where he lives because obviously she knows where everybody lives in Roswell, and she goes to his house, she breaks in, she's looking for information because because she did ask Grant, and I forgot that, but it's not that important. She does ask Grant about what he saw that night, and he basically brushes her off and tells her like, oh, I was high, so I don't even know what I saw. I was too high. And so, have you ever heard that song, Too High for the Supermarket? That's what I pictured playing at that part. I loved that song back in the day. But yeah, so he was like, I was too high. I had no idea what I saw. They could have been floating. They might not even have been there. I was high. So she doesn't believe him. She breaks into his house because she's really cool with B&E. Maybe because she knows all the sheriffs, so why would she even worry about being arrested if she B&E somebody? She breaks in there. This is where this recap is going to take hard left, because I didn't write down the specifics of what happens because the acting is super bad. There is Michael, Max, and Isabel all talking with each other, and Max is assuming that Isabel's having these weird moments where she's blacking out and finding herself in weird places because of all of the stuff that Liz's return to Roswell has brought up. Things that happened 10 years ago, and I guess Isabel was suffering from these blackouts where she would end up places during the time when Rosa passed away. He's basically like, we need to get her to leave. And we discover that Isabel got into Liz's mind and forced her to leave Roswell 10 years ago. And so they make a Freudian slip. I don't even know if it's Freudian so much as it's just a really huge slip. And I'm thinking, that never slipped out in 10 years. It was an easy slip. How could it not slip out? This is why I'm not believing it. That's why it's so unbelievable. Because I'm like, it literally is obvious when it comes slipping out. And there's no way, especially because they were part of Rosa's death. They, I'm sure, have communicated about it or, hummed and hawed over it. There's no way, with as easy as it rolled off her tongue, that it would not have come up in this 10-year span. But it comes up, and her and Michael give each other the quick look like, oh, snap, we've been outed. And Max learns that is why Liz left. She didn't just run away from him and not love him and not care to say goodbye. And so Max is pissed off, and he wants to go find Liz. He tells Isabel, find her. And I'm like, how is she gonna find her? Like, she was just out in the middle of BFE. What do you think she knows? She hasn't seen Liz all day. She hasn't even seen her husband for a couple days, or I don't know, a night. So we discovered that apparently Isabel's ability also acts as and makes her some form of a bloodhound. Or she can apparently track people who she's been in their mind before, and she knows exactly where they are. She tells Max and that she's at Wyatt Long's place, or not even, I don't know if she's at Wyatt Long's place or she's at Kooky Pants McConspiracy Theory's place. And we flash forward to where Liz is at, and Liz and Mick Kooky Pants are being shot at by an unknown man. They're running all around trying to like duck and dodge bullets, and we learn that Mick Kooky Pants actually has been purposely paid off somehow to give conspiracy theories about things that are not real. The acting between Liz and Mick Kooky Pants is horrible. The acting between Isabel, Michael, and Max is horrible. Like, he doesn't even look really angry. He looks fake angry. Again, Nathan Parsons is not a bad actor. I don't even think that Janine Mason is a bad actor. I mean, I haven't seen her in anything else to be sure, because she might be, but from what I think and what my mind is telling me, I don't think that's the case. I think this is just a very poorly executed show. I'm curious. Alex and Kyle are probably the characters who could be toyed with the most in any reboot or reimagining of Roswell. You can have what happened to Alex in the OG Roswell happen, or you can have what happened to Kyle in the OG Roswell happen, or it could just be anything. Realistically, you could go either way. And I wonder why they decided to make Michael gay and with Alex instead of Kyle gay with Alex. I think that would have been a better choice. Like I said, I'm not mad at the homosexual idea and the storyline. I think it needs to be authentic and make sense to the storyline, where here it does not. I think they should have done that. Obviously, they didn't consult me first. After Kyle and Alex are searching everywhere in this room, that Kyle deduces, after seeing lots of evidence and hearing Alex champion his dad, because Kyle is having some salty feelings for his dad once he finds out his dad was like an adulterer. And so he ends up telling Kyle, like, hey, the reason your dad didn't gift you with this house is because he knew you'd be okay, but he knew my dad was a jerk. He left me this house as a way to help me because he was always helping kids in need. And that gets Kyle thinking, like, he was always helping kids in need, so maybe he wasn't having an affair with Rosa so much as he was trying to help her. And then that prompts Kyle to do some more digging, and they discover something very important. Jim Valenti had an affair with Rosa and Liz's mom. Kyle has figured that Liz, while she is Mr. Orteco's child, Rosa looks like she's actually his half-sister. Jim Valenti fathered her, and that's why he cared so much about her and cared that she was clean and would make a room in this little house to try to help her get clean. Okay, so Liz and Grant, who is aka Kooky Pants Conspiracy Theory, they are running around and doing some very poor acting while they're getting shot at. Their acting is so bad in this show at this point, in this episode, that I take it back. It isn't like The Vampire Diaries or the originals, because the originals was great acting. Maybe sometimes it was poor, execution of some storylines, but it was great acting. The Vampire Diary characters were good actors and actresses for the most part, and it all gelled. This episode just blew that all out of the water. It felt like I was watching like a film student's final project, which she has to turn in a short, and this is what it is. Like, it's just really poor. We discovered that Wyatt Long is the one that is shooting at Mick Kooky Pants and Liz. Wyatt Long finds Liz, and we don't see him find Liz because, remember, Max heard that where Liz was, and so he rushes out to go see where she is. So we go back to Liz, and she's put in this crate, which is this big wooden crate, and Wyatt Long just sets it on fire. And Liz is like, Wyatt, trying to talk sense into him, but he's single-minded and focused. He douses that thing in gasoline and lights it on fire. I'll be honest, I'm gonna have to watch the episode again because I don't know for the life of me how she gets out of that crate. Max wasn't there yet when she got out of the crate, so I'm like, how did you get out of the crate? But she gets out of this crate that is clearly on fire with her inside it. So she gets out, she's running for her life, and goes around this corner, and the hand immediately comes over her mouth to stifle her scream that obviously she would have because she's running from a crazed madman with a gun. He silences her with his hand, and he's like, it's me. And she hugs him and embraces him so thoroughly, and that was the only believable moment in this episode. Once Max and Liz are walking around, trying to look for Wyatt, trying to be safe, and we discover Grant Green, aka Kooky Pants, headshot by Wyatt Long, I'm assuming. And I was like, well, I did question in the last episode what his purpose was, and apparently his purpose was to die in the very next episode. Max ends up being shot by Wyatt Long also. I don't know how bad the shot was. You see Liz is freaking out because she can't heal him. So she's like trying to cover the hole where the blood is coming out, and he's definitely hurt. And then I guess the police had been called because obviously Max called them. He knew what he was probably going into because Isabel did tell him that Liz was in danger. So Max is taken off, and we believe that he must have gone to the hospital or something. He's been shot, or he went to the nearest Walmart for some nail polish remover. I don't know, but he's been shot. So then, though, the scenes don't mesh well because we kind of hop all around. Nothing really is cohesive in this episode. It's like they had 3 other episodes happening in one episode. And so Noah finally finds Isabel. And Isabel is like, hey, you know, sorry. And she's at Michael's trailer. Noah comes up and he's just had it. And again, if we had more character development and I knew more about Noah and Isabel's love affair, and they did have that really good scene in that one episode, but we haven't seen them since, and there's been no other reason to believe that Isabel is attached to Noah or that Noah is overtly attached to her. I mean, we do feel it a little bit because he did do some great acting in that scene, and we did see a really warm, heartfelt moment, but Isabel and Noah, to me at this point, I don't care enough or have enough invested in them to care that Noah decides to leave Isabel. He asks Isabel to please confide in him and tell him what's up, because he takes this brown paper bag out of his car and dumps out like tons of bottles, empty bottles of nail polish remover. And he tells her, like, basically when people are alcoholics, they stash alcohol everywhere around the house. And I think what he's thinking is that she's an alcoholic, and these bottles, this nail polish remover, was her way of like disguising it by having tons of them because it wouldn't raise questions. So he's asking her, like, be honest with me, tell me what's going on. And Isabel is like, I can't tell you. And Noah's like, well, you can't tell me, then you can't come home. I'm out of here. And he leaves her, and Isabel does nothing to stop this from happening. She looks like she cares, but I don't care, so I'm like, whatever. He left her, big whoop. So Noah sends Isabel packing, just like I plan to do with this shit show. Sorry. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hang in there for any more recaps or reviews. I honestly am not invested, and the pull for even the characters or the care for the characters to even see what happens next is just not there. So if this video ends up getting sufficient enough likes, I will recap and review episode 6. But as of right now, I'm not sure that's in the cards. I don't know if I can stomach another episode. I wanted to give this a chance, but now I just don't feel attached enough, and I don't think I'm ever going to. Like, yeah, I might learn stuff, but it's kind of too little too late. You had the first couple episodes to get us invested in these characters somehow. Clunky dialogue, weird holes in plot definitely hindered that from happening. Then we have the wrap up of this episode, and like I said, this is not going to be hugely long. I'm probably going to edit a lot of crap out of this, but Liz and Max have a moment, a very chemistry-less moment. Liz looks deeply into Max's eyes, and she tells him in a very flat, almost not-important tone, hey, you know, when I saw you while I was being shot at by Wyatt Long, I just knew I was safe. I knew that you would keep me safe, but I still don't trust you. And I'm like, she doesn't know how to have a sweet word with anybody. And again, I'm just like, whatever, I feel no pull. Like, it doesn't matter to me because I don't even like Liz's character right now. I don't like anything about her. This character just has given me nothing to work with. So Liz is with Max, and her gears in her mind are turning. The hamster's running on the wheel, and she does a little math. She puts 2 and 2 together and gets 54. I don't understand how this all works together, but something Max says to her makes her think about it, and she takes a little look again at him. She remembers his hand on her mouth when he covered her mouth when he found her while Wyatt was shooting at them. She's remembering, or I don't even know if she's remembering or how she knows this, but she's remembering Grant Green at least saying in his recorded 911 call that 3 kids were floating and Michael's hand or something was broken. I don't remember. It wasn't that important. Something was wrong with Michael, so he couldn't have been floating anybody. Then she looks at Max's hands, and she's like, the handprint over Rosa's mouth in the autopsy picture is too small to be your hand. Her gears keep going again. You can almost hear them grinding. And she's like, you would do anything to protect someone you love, because Max did say something like that to her. And she's like, you're protecting somebody you love. And then at this same moment, we see Michael and Isabel having the same sort of moment of tension and revelation, because Michael's talking to Isabel and she says, oh, you know, I'm so happy now. Like, even though she's upset that Noah left her, or at least we're supposed to believe she's upset that Noah left her, she's also relieved because she's been lying. And she says, you know, I'm lying about so much. I don't know who I am. I just don't know anything true anymore because I'm lying about everything to everyone, it seems like, except for Michael and Max. And then she gets upset and she's like, you know, well, at the end of the day, you know, yeah, it sucks Noah left, but at least we don't have any secrets anymore. And Michael not having a good poker face at all. I'm like, this was kept for 10 years. None of you look like you can lie well at all. So how in the world did 10 years go by and this never came up? And let me backtrack, because he does say, maybe we should tell our loved ones what we are. Maybe it's time to trust them. And I'm thinking that is very un-Michael-like. At least from the OG Roswell, that's very un-Michael-like. He would never suggest telling everybody. But so they're talking about that. And then when he gives that weird look, of course she notices. At the same time, we flash over to Liz and Max, and both Liz and Isabel are kind of having this moment where they see what happened. Liz says it first. She's like, Michael didn't kill Rosa. You didn't kill Rosa. Isabel killed Rosa. At that same moment, Isabel realizes she killed Rosa. Remember, Isabel was having these same episodes around the time of Rosa's death. So now we see that there's some sort of a connection. These little episodes where she suddenly, you know, is like having blackouts and she doesn't remember where she is are similar to the time she was with, I guess she ends up finding Rosa, or I don't know what happens, but she killed Rosa. That's where this episode leaves off. My thoughts. I pretty much already gave you my thoughts. If this recap and review gets enough likes, and enough, I mean double-digit likes, I will recap and review episode 6 of Roswell, New Mexico, and episode 6 of the OG Roswell. If it doesn't get in the double digits by the time next Tuesday rolls around, I am not recapping episode 6. I may watch it. I might. At this point in time, I'm not going to. If I'm not going to review or recap it, I'll just watch it someday or later. I don't know. I'll just watch it at some point, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. So let me know what you think. Did you watch Roswell, New Mexico? Did you watch the OG one? What did you think? What are you thinking about this? Did you read Roswell High book series? Is this on par? Am I missing something? Leave that in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe, share somehow. Smoke signal, Morse code, carrier pigeon, snail mail, 2 cups and a string, I don't know, wind talk, whatever you gotta do. Please share this video. Like me on all my social media, that's listed in the description, and I will see you later, YouTube, and hopefully I will see you when I have makeup on. Goodbye, peaches.